I'm going to hide this tape when I'm finished. If none of us make it, at least there'll be some kind of record. The storm's being hit at us hard. Now for 48 hours, we still have nothing to go on. One other thing, I think it rips through our clothes when it takes you over. Windows found some shredded long johns, but the name tag was missing. They could be anybody's. Nobody trusts anybody now, and we're all very tired. Nothing else I can do. Just wait. RJ MacReady, helicopter pilot, U.S. Outpost number 31.
Jason is my son, and today is his birthday. You can have dinner with us. My brother makes good head cheese. Candyman, I get cheese. Candyman. We all go a little mad sometimes.
Hello and welcome to the final podcast, the last podcast you will ever listen to. We are the creators of the Spooky Pit, the innovators of the Passion Bump, and we are taking you down the darkest rabbit holes of all things horror.
Yeah, spooky bitches. We review horror movies and fuck 'em with comedy. We are your final bros, Brian Hopper LaGrasse and Shane Amsterdam. I remember, she doesn't. Smith. And we are joined today by our scream queen, Jen, the producer, and we have a special guest today. My other brother, Tim Ryan, fresh out of the basement for years, and he's here playing the part of MacReady.
Yeah, what's going on?
We've let him out of the basement. He's running wild.
Yes, it's been quite some time down there. What did I miss? I've been down there for probably over a year, I want to say.
So 2020's been great.
It seems great, yeah.
How do you like global pandemics?
Well, actually, at first I thought there was a bunch of ninjas outside your house. That's why I got dressed up like this. And I was downstairs just eating, Bush's baked beans with the raccoons again. And it just so happens that I watch the thing every Friday night. And then you just happen to be doing a podcast on it, and I walked in on you doing it. It seems like this year's going very well. I see you guys are doing well for yourselves, and I'm happy you're healthy, and these podcasts seems pretty sweet. So I'm happy to be here. And I did hear one thing though. I did hear that Shane is now a father.
You're right.
Yes,
Shane is a father. I'm happy you brought that up. Yeah.
I was hoping to leave this joke in 2020, but now in 2021, it seems that the joke has continued even more.
Well, I actually happened to bring a gift today for you.
Oh, God.
Me and the raccoons were working downstairs in pitch darkness in the printing press.
Okay.
As one does. And we actually made you a shirt. I actually happen to have a spare. This one's a little bit of a fluky, but you get one too, Brian.
Go.
A number one dad shirt.
And
now I feel left out.
There may have been some conspiring between brothers to get this assembled, but I hope you enjoy it.
Yeah,
thank you very much.
I love them.
I'm so proud of you. I'm so proud.
Thank you. Thank the raccoons.
It's the least I could do.
I will wear this shirt with pride. Thank you very much, Tim and the raccoons.
Shane, are you now acknowledging you are a father?
It's canon. It's now canon.
It's canon.
I am still not a father, but I appreciate a free shirt, as everyone knows.
That's fair.
If it's on a shirt, it's true. Those are the rules, Shane.
If it's on a shirt, if it's on the internet, which this podcast now is, hopefully on YouTube by the time I'm done with it. But everything big is happening. We're on the internet. That means it's true. Shane's a father. He's acknowledging it. We're making strides in 2021.
The problem is I abide by the one rule. If you hear it on the internet, it's definitely true.
That is always
So now it's true.
But this one instance, this is not true.
Too bad. She's also like one of Sauce McGavin's, his production team. So she's like nearby always.
Well, we're talking about The Thing, which is the last movie we're reviewing in January. It is a great way to end January.
So I think January has probably been, and I know we've previously discussed this, our best month overall of movies. I feel like we've not done a bad. It's weird. We always go through stretches of like good movie, bad movie, good movie, bad movie. Sometimes not of our own choice.
Yeah.
People will just recommend these for us, but we have 4 banger movies and we are capping it with arguably
the best movie we've reviewed on the podcast.
Yes.
I mean, in your opinion, it was still a topper for me.
That's fair. I would be honest. Like, I've seen this movie actually only 3 times now. The first time I saw it was Shane 2 years ago. I fell in love with it the first time I saw it, and that love has not vanquished with time. If anything, I appreciate it more. I guess OD on the body horror. I love it. So I know we probably, before we get any further into this movie, should mention that this movie is very graphic. Like,
Yeah, disclaimer, this has a lot of
body horror.
Disclaimers that if you're uncomfortable with a lot of things visually happening to someone's body, it's very graphic. But without further ado, I think we're ready to talk about this movie.
Hell yeah.
Yes, we are. With all that said, let's jump right into the Spooky Pit.
Researchers assigned to an outpost in Antarctica are introduced to an alien life form that takes the appearance of its victims. The Thing was released in 1982, directed by the legendary John Carpenter. It is a horror, mystery, sci-fi, and it stars Kurt Russell, who's an absolute badass in everything he's in, as MacReady, William Brimley as Dr. Blair, T.K. Carter as Knowles, David Clennon as Palmer, Keith David as Childs, Richard Dysart as Dr. Cooper. I'm going to keep naming them because I'm naming every person that's in part of the crew at the station. Charles Hallahan as Vance Norris, Peter Maloney as George Bennings, Richard Masur as Clark, Donald Moffat as Gary, Joel Paulus as Fuchs, and Thomas G. Waits as Windows.
And I am happy you named all of these people because they all deserve to be acknowledged because each one of them plays their role so well in this film.
Absolutely.
Yeah, this was a great movie. I don't believe this is the first time we've talked about this movie. We were talking about this movie back in December back in October, because we referenced it in Halloween. Isn't this the movie that they're watching on TV?
Yes.
Yeah,
They're watching the original.
They're watching The Thing from Another World. Is
yes.
that the movie?
Okay,
Yes,
that's
which-
what I was talking. That's what
which
I meant.
is the original. John Carpenter remade that movie, just dropping the ending of the title and calling it The Thing.
Right. Yeah, that movie came out, I think, in like 1951.
I believe you're correct.
Very, very old film, but I'm glad they remade it.
Yeah. I've never seen the original, so I'm not going to say anything negative about it, but I can't see it being better than this.
I don't want to blow my load early, but I'm just going to be honest with you. Like I said, this is an all-time favorite for me. I love this movie. I'm going to be talking about it like a kid at a candy store. So get used to that.
No,
All right.
It was an excellent movie. It's definitely like, and you guys can vouch, I hate body dysmorphia and all that. I still thoroughly enjoyed this movie. I actually enjoyed this movie way more than Society.
Oh, yeah.
It's a better
Yeah.
movie.
They do make parallels between that Society and then I think another film like This Stuff. A lot of big body horror. This for me, I think, like between Society and this one always grossed me out way more, but I'm also like very invested in it.
Yeah, because the story is super gripping. And it's like you're automatically like thrown into the plot like right away.
Yes.
Right from the Norwegian on the helicopter, you're in. Boom. Like you're in there. I love it.
So that's what we'll say. So the opening is actually a spaceship falling down to Earth.
It's like burning up in space.
Exactly. And then we go right to these two guys in a helicopter. We will learn that they are two Norwegians, and we see them in this helicopter chasing a husky through the snow. And the one guy is sitting outside the helicopter trying to shoot this dog, and we have no idea what the hell's going on.
Yeah, I mean, you just see a dog like just treading through the snow, and you're like, why is this guy relentlessly pursuing a dog in the snow? But you got to know in the back of your head, like something's got to be up.
Exactly. Especially when the movie opens with a spaceship falling to the ground.
Yeah, they definitely just pull no punches from the beginning, and you're just like left connecting these dots haphazardly from the get-go.
At the station, you see some of the guys here, and they're playing like ping pong, and you see our protagonist, MacReady, he's playing a game of computer chess, which he's very confident he's going to win. So confident that when he loses, he like fries the motherboard.
Yeah, he just pours his I guess it's either whiskey or something, just into the board and fries the whole thing.
And I want to say he definitely just refers to I want to say this is the only female character in the movie, the chess wizard,
Yes.
R.I.P., aka the cheating bitch.
Well said. So the guys step outside. They notice the Norwegian helicopter. I think it says Norge on the actual copter.
It does.
Yes.
It's like encircling the camp. And the helicopter actually, I think it starts dropping nades to try to kill the dogs.
They start dropping bombs everywhere.
Yeah, they're desperate as hell to kill this dog.
We get why, but I'm saying like at this point, it's just like, even you think a nade is going to like, the dogs are so shifty. Like that's not going to catch a
No,
dog.
the dog is quick.
It's like a small act of war.
And I want to I want to take this part to mention how like the prequel of this movie, which was made in 2011, is also called The Thing. does a very good job of setting this part up, because that movie leaves you off with the Norwegians in the helicopter chasing the dog. And it also in the movie sets up the one Norwegian putting the grenades into like the container that you see in this movie.
Yes.
So as much as people make fun of that movie and say it's not that good, I think it does a very good job at least of setting this one up.
You know what? I've seen it once and I thought it was okay, but I think I need to go back to it to like fully appreciate it. Because I'll be honest with you guys, I know this is a sin. I've seen it before I saw the original thing.
That's fine.
Yeah, that's all right. I think you will appreciate it more, at least for how well it does set up the events of this movie.
But that matters. Like that context definitely matters. So
Yeah.
I definitely got to go back and watch it.
I've never seen the original, so I definitely have to go see that. But that's so interesting, and I love when movies do that, when they start directly at the end of a movie.
Yeah,
Yep.
it like picks it right up. Like that's so cool.
Once they see this helicopter circling, all the guys come rushing out of the base. Like Brian said, they're dropping grenades on this dog, but the dog smartly actually runs towards the humans. So the helicopter lands and the Norwegians get out and they are about to throw a grenade at the people with the dog.
I think doesn't the dog like jump on like George, like one of the
Yes,
guys
George.
there?
He just
Right?
goes immediately for a human just to establish that bond.
Now,
right.
now George, he's Bennings, right? It's George Bennings.
George Bennings,
Yeah,
yes.
the only reason I want to clarify that is I think through most of the movie they refer to him as Bennings.
Yeah, so I noticed different characters. Like some people refer to them as their first name, and then some people refer to them as their last name.
Yes.
So to try not to confuse people, we should probably maybe just use last names. Maybe.
Yes,
Would that
so
be easier?
so he jumps onto Bennings.
I think that kind of shows like how close each individual character is with each other if they're using a first name versus a last name.
That's a good point.
It is a term of endearment, I think. And I actually did like a roll call at the beginning of the film where, because I think almost everybody, pretty much the entire base is outside at this point, going like, what the hell is going on? So I was just writing down names and then trying to associate jobs. But then when they start using first names, you're like, all right, now I got to backtrack and just make sure I
figure
match
out.
it up. Right.
Oh, this is going to be right on brand for me. I know nobody's names.
And that's so this is how you know I really, really love this movie. I know every single character's name in this movie.
That says something.
and
Yes.
yeah, for me, I get everyone's name wrong.
That says something.
One of the Norwegian guys then tries to throw the grenade at them, but he drops it into the snow. He goes to look for his grenade, but he can't find it because, let's be honest, it's deep snow. And the grenade blows up, killing the one Norwegian guy and blowing up his helicopter.
Yeah, I gotta mention the toss here. So like he's going for like a deep toss, and he's willing to kill like everybody because he thinks the threat of this dog for some reason is like a serious threat that he'd be willing to even kill humans. But you don't really know like the state of affairs here because like this guy's from Norway, like they're like at an outpost. You don't know like what kind of like this guy's waging war or something. Who the hell knows?
I just want to point this out because there's another thing the prequel does. In the Norwegian base in the prequel, every character except for 3 speak English. The 2 surviving characters at the end of the prequel are the only 2 people who speak only Norwegian.
Wow. So that's
So that's how they
consistent.
set it up.
That's amazing. I will say also,
funny.
like, without giving away too much, you got to reckon these guys are probably whatever they're chasing, whatever they seem to be hunting here that they're so scared of. They're tired.
Yeah.
They have probably not slept in a couple of days, and you've got one guy trying to pilot a helicopter, and assuming these guys are just like pencil pushers, one's trying to operate like an automatic rifle and chucking grenades. That's not in his job description.
But that's the thing.
That's a good point.
They're not like riflemen.
They're
This is-
researchers.
yeah, they're just researchers.
Yeah.
So
The whiff I'm talking about is like he takes the grenade, but like you know when like you put your arm back to get like a better like release on the throw. He just takes his arm back and then just releases it backwards.
yeah, the way I took it is it's like cold, slippery metal with the snow, maybe.
Yeah, no, that's how I would.
That's how
write
I
it off.
thought too. He just slipped.
He just like pulls his arm back and he's like, whoopsie.
And he tries hard, but like I said, they both blow up. So then the other Norwegian guy, he actually just opens fire on the Americans and the dog, and he shoots Bennings in the leg.
Yeah, in the station, Gary is like firing back with a pistol.
Yeah.
And Gary's their captain, right?
So as I took Gary, he is kind of like the U.S. Marshal that's on the base to protect all of these like scientists.
Right.
Because the Norwegian guy's just gunning right straight for the dog. Like
Yeah.
he's bypassing George on the floor. Sorry, Bennings on
Yeah.
the floor,
Mm-hmm.
and he's going straight for the base. And Gary just pops him, hits him in the head, and he dies.
Yeah, he like shoots Bennings and then runs right past him. And Bennings is like, wow, fuck you too. Like, what the fuck?
They bring Bennings back into the base, and the doctor gives him he only needs, I think he says 4 stitches to fix the gunshot wound.
Yes.
And now we cut to windows, and I believe this is Dr. Blair. Windows says he can't reach anyone. He hasn't been able to reach anyone for weeks.
For weeks, yeah, for a long time. He's trying to reach out via radio, but he's not getting any responses. And the team right now, they're kind of like in, I guess, this morgue area or like this lab. I think they refer to as the lab. And they're examining the body of the Norwegian guy. I think someone even mentions that he was stationed out there for 8 weeks.
Yes.
And their outpost is about 1 hour distance from where their outpost is.
Yes. This is where they also discuss whether they should go out there to see what's happening over there. Now, they're hesitant, not because they're like scared. It's because apparently there's a bad storm coming in. So they're a little hesitant to take the helicopter out in the storm. But MacReady says, like, I know I could get us over there in time.
Such a freaking badass.
He's the chill one, right?
It's Kurt Russell.
Yeah, he was just like, oh, yeah, no problem. I'm down. Let's go. And he's just like drumming along to whatever he's listening to.
I want to make a note here that Palmer, which I want to say is their resident pothead, who's his actual role, because he actually bunks with Keith David's character Childs. He's supposed to be the assistant mechanic and pilot in training, and he actually offers to take the team over there, and they're like, absolutely not. And then MacReady's just like, yeah, no, I can do it. Okay, MacReady, we'll get in the chopper with you.
Yeah, Palmer's the one guy. I'm glad you actually mentioned. He was the one guy I didn't know his exact role. Because like everyone clearly, like Windows is the communications guy. You have your two doctors. Clark obviously does the dogs.
Right.
I think Norris might be the only other guy. I'm not really sure what he does other than wear a sweater.
I think he's supposed to be a geologist, but it's never specifically stated. Yeah.
Gotcha.
He does listen to orders very well. That's one thing he does. He takes orders.
So MacReady, Gary, and the doctor, I believe this one's Copper.
Yeah, Copper, right?
Yes. They all decide to take the helicopter and fly to the Norwegian base. This is where you see Palmer and Knowles having a conversation. That doesn't matter. What does matter is you see the dog underneath the table.
Yeah, he's just kind of like lying there underneath the table, not in kennel. Like, what do you call that cage?
It's a kennel, a big kennel.
It's not in the kennel. It's under their table where they're playing.
Then we cut to Knowles. He's like listening to this very loud music. Someone comes in to tell him to turn it down a little bit. I think it's Bennings, right? Because he's like, I just got shot in the leg.
Yes.
Now, this is my first conversation I want to have with you guys. So after that happens, the dog sneaks around the base. And now you see the dog go into a room. And now you just see the shadow of the person. You don't see who it is. Now, this is my first, whose room is it? Now, I have a person I think it might be. And I'm going to say it's Norris. I think this is where Norris is the first person to be affected by this dog, just based off of the shadow, the hair in the shadow, and in the timeline of when he would be infected, it makes sense for him to be the one infected in this scene. I'm just curious who you guys think it was.
Now, I had read something that apparently Carpenter just didn't use any of the actual actors for that room. He wanted you to come up with your own theory as to who got infected first.
That's
so
cool.
He just used a random guy. Who all of them just seem to have the same hair. Poofy hair. But I agree with Norris. I definitely think it was Norris.
Yeah, I would agree. Like, to your point, I think so too. Like, I can't ever say this word right. Silhouette. The silhouette.
Hey.
I always say silhouette.
It's okay.
It's silhouette.
It's our word of the day.
Jen calls me out on it all the time. The silhouette, like you said, it doesn't really match with anybody. I noticed that too, because I actually paused on it and I was like looking for it, and I'm like, it's
who is it?
Maybe a little bit stockier of a guy, but it doesn't really fit because they all, like you said, they have the curlier or poofier hair because they've been out on the outpost.
Right.
So yeah, I would agree that it's Norris, but from that image, I would not be able to decipher who it is.
You know right away, it's not Gary, it's not Dr. Copper, and it's not MacReady because they're gone already.
Correct.
Right.
And you know it's not Knowles because he's in the kitchen
by himself.
And it's not Childs because he doesn't have hair.
Yes.
So then it comes down to Windows, who definitely has hair like that, Palmer, and the one I said, Norris. I think those are the three it alludes to. And like I said, I always thought it was Norris.
I did not pay attention enough to have an opinion.
Could be Palmer.
That's the thing. It could also be, and it also could be Windows. You don't know at that point. That's why I love this movie.
You piece it together.
Exactly. You piece it together. I love when movies don't spoon feed you everything.
Yes.
And they make you think.
Those are the best movies. I love movies that leave you with your interpretation, but like give you like some good, clear, like define, like it could be these people, but they give you like a plethora to choose from. They actually came out with a board game theme for The Thing called The Thing at Outpost 31. It's exactly like this. Like
That's
it's
cool.
like a social deduction kind of game where it's like one person's like starts infected, but like starts infecting other people, and the other people have to decide like, oh, who's infected and who's not, kind of deal. And you're like kind of like going around the outpost, like completing objectives and shit.
I'm glad you mentioned that because now I'll bring this up because I was going to bring it up at some point anyway. PlayStation 2, the Thing game,
Yes.
where you play as the rescue team. And as you're going through the U.S. base, you actually find recordings from MacReady as you're trying to investigate what happened at this base.
Is that a rare game?
I have it if you ever want to borrow and play it.
I like to play it.
You don't
That's really
see it
cool.
often.
It's supposed to be canon, but I'll go into it a little bit later about what Carpenter says, something much later regarding the ending. But yeah, that, and I was going to say, I also think a popular game everyone's really been into lately is Among Us. I think you can draw a lot of similarities to that.
Definitely.
Because you spend the entire time just constantly freaking out that one person is it and they're not, and then that you either win or lose at that point. I like to introduce anybody who likes Among Us to the Thing. I just sit them down. I'm like, you're going to watch this.
It makes sense too, because it's like all the non-imposters are going around doing their little tasks while the one is not infecting, but killing the other ones. It's a good parallel.
Playing that game. I play it like pretty often with two of my other friends who love playing games. And I think the only real super difference is that you're not infecting other people who then can go infect others. I think it's just like wipe out.
I think we need that. That's the type of game we need.
Yeah. There's also an X-Files episode that is, I know we keep going off the tangent.
No, I like it. I like it.
There's like, I think it's episode 8 or 9. I think it's 9 in like, same thing. They're in an outpost in the middle of like the Arctic, and they call in Scully and Mulder to investigate. It's his first season, and it's a parasite that's infecting people, and it's the same dynamic. Like, oh, who has it, who doesn't? It's kind of like the same antics, but I think it's super cool, and I thought that idea was really cool. And then I watched The Thing.
That's good. I see. I love all these like little things we could take from like video games or TV shows or other, computer games, and just like they all parallel this movie.
Was the original the first movie that did this, or were there any other movies? Do you guys remember?
Off the top of my head, I don't know. I mean, the original came out in 1951, so I mean, I could see it being one of the first of its kind.
This model has been used in other capacities. Like, for instance, the movie Identity. It has nothing to do with a parasite, but it's like, oh, who's the murderer?
Oh, actually, I just thought of a very good one. Movie from, I believe it's the 70s, Invasion of the Body Snatchers.
Yeah.
Oh, I forgot about that one.
Plot opens up, and it's the person, but it's the alien is now taking control of the person, because it's essentially a parasite alien as well.
It is, yeah.
There was another movie, and I don't remember the name of it. You guys might. It was an alien movie where like aliens invaded, and the aliens that successfully took over human bodies would spit into like their drinks and coffee, and you had to like drink it. And the way that it took over is you had to go to sleep, and it would basically incubate within the body. I don't remember the name.
The Body Snatchers?
Is that the one? It was a newer.
Isn't it when they go to sleep they get control?
Yeah, it was the newer one.
It's been remade a ton of times.
Yeah, Invasion of the Body Snatchers has like 3 different movies.
All right,
My favorite being the Donald Sutherland one.
I actually saw it like when I think I was in high school or something. It came out like in the 2000s.
That's something we'll look up because now I'm curious.
I'm very curious.
But let's get back to the actual plot.
There's a lot of tangents.
Okay, so the helicopter gets to the Norwegian base, and MacReady, Gary, and Doc all see that this base is completely destroyed.
It's in shambles. It's smoking. There's debris everywhere.
Okay. And now this is where I'll say like everything they see here, this is the last time I'll mention it, is done in the prequel that they made in 2011. So
That's
just
cool.
I'll mention some things. You see an axe in the wall that is in the prequel. You see a dead body where the guy has cut his wrist and like looks like he was becoming the Thing. That is alluded to in the prequel. They find the giant ice that's been broken open with a hole in the ceiling, all done in the prequel. And they find the 2, like the face morphing, like kind of creature that looks burned. They do that exact scene where that scene is in the prequel. So it's all these things that they are doing in the prequel, they do find here in this space.
That's so cool.
I love the consistency there too.
I do want to mention one key fact here. MacReady is a fashion icon. And his 10-gallon hat on top of his hoodie, on top of how many layers of clothing he has, is honestly like the most incredible thing I've ever seen in my life.
It's fire. I'm with you.
The Turd Ferguson hat. It's incredible.
Yeah, from the legendary skit. Yeah,
it is great. His fashion sense is fantastic. So other important things is the Doctor picks up these files, which are very important to the plot because he's going to read through these files later on to understand what had happened in the space.
Yeah, obviously they noticed, like you mentioned, the bloody axe in the door, and they bash through this door, and they notice like everything in this place is frozen over.
Yes. This shot, like I mentioned, the guy who slit his wrist, you actually see the blood coming down, but frozen. And it's so
intense.
Yes, that's exactly how to put it.
it's like the scalpel is still in hand too.
Yeah.
Like in the blood that's just pouring from the slit
And
wrist.
you see also like when they pan up, you see his throat is cut, but it's not like a cut that you would see from the scalp. It almost looks like something was trying to
assimilate him.
Exactly.
Right.
If you didn't know that, it looks like I always use the word Pez dispenser. It looks like a Pez dispenser because it's not just like a simple slice. Like you mentioned, it looks like half the neck has been severed.
Which you'll understand why it looks like that as this movie goes on. After this scene, this is when they then go to the ice block room, right? They see this giant ice block, which is clearly something has been carved out of it or broken out of this because the whole ceiling is destroyed in this scene.
I think even Doc mentions that like in the next scene, like when they're outside, he's like, oh, maybe they found a fossil and just like chopped it out of the ice.
Yes. But then the problem with that theory is this is when they find burned remains of something that it looks like its face is splitting in two.
Yeah. And they're like, we can't even identify that as a man. Like, what the fuck is that?
They have the idea to bring back the charred remains to be examined by their scientists. So that's exactly what they do.
I just want to be clear about something because this is, I guess, the only character confusion I had. Blair does all the autopsies, or am I wrong?
Blair does all the autopsies.
Yeah.
Dr. Copper is just the medical doctor for the people.
Okay.
Right. So Blair is their scientist / biologist, and Fuchs is their assistant biologist.
Gotcha.
And then Copper is the actual medical doctor for them in case anyone needs stitches or gets sick or something like that. Fuchs is a very interesting character too. I absolutely love Fuchs, despite him not having the biggest role in this. We get back to the American base. Before that, I think Gary comes into Windows and he says, "Have you reached anyone yet?" Windows once again says, "We still haven't been able to reach anyone." And now we go to Blair performing the autopsy on the thing. And what I love about this is his confusion as he keeps doing this, because this is clearly a thing that doesn't look human, but as he's autopsying it, all it has is human organs.
Yeah, I mean, the first thing they call out, they're like, well, right now we know there's nothing physically wrong.
Everything's there.
And it's got normal heart, normal liver, normal lungs, intestines look in check. So yeah.
Parts of it aren't human, like parts of it look dog, parts of it look, what would he say, seal or something?
I mean, they're looking at it like, well, biologically speaking, all of the organs are there, but anatomically speaking, something is not right.
Exactly.
Yeah, they start listing off various animals that it anatomically has.
Right, because it's kind of like an amalgam of things at this point, especially when you see it. Like, it definitely looks like a human, but it doesn't. It's like something is, they're intrigued, but they're obviously concerned.
Yes. So now we cut to like a nighttime scene, and I think it's definitely Palmer, and he's sitting watching TV with someone else. And this is where, as Tim alluded to, Palmer lights a spliff real quick.
Yep.
The old pothead of the crew.
Yeah, I believe you see some of the guys playing some cards.
Yeah, I think isn't this the part where Benning is startled by the dog?
Yes, it is.
Yes, this is it.
And then he tells Clark to put him with the other mutts in the kennel.
Clark does. He takes the dog. He puts the dog with the other dogs. And this is when this movie's been very subtle until right now, because this is where all hell breaks
loose.
This
is full steam ahead at this point.
I had to freeze, and I was like, because I was
this is a
sad.
It's a hard scene for many
It
reasons.
is. It's a really hard scene to watch, but also like the fact that like we know as humans we care more about animals, especially dogs in movies. So the fact that this happened to a dog like right off the bat, like I can imagine other people that were watching it were just like, not the dog, no.
Oh, they pull no punches with these bros. So these dogs are getting it.
Yeah, so I'm going to go into grave detail right now. So as soon as Clark puts the dog into the kennel and walks away, the other dogs, it's the animal thing where they can sense when something is off. Mm-hmm. So they start growling at this new dog, and the dog's face splits open. And the dogs are going crazy, like so crazy that one of the dogs is actually biting the metal to try to escape.
Yeah, the splitting dog face was really out there because like you just think it's just like barking like crazy, and then it happens. It just splits. His face just like explodes in 4 different directions, but like he's still got like a piece of it intact. It just falls down, and then you just see its long ass tongue just going nuts.
It's disgusting.
Yes. And like if this is your first time watching this movie, because I remember I'm just like, oh whoa, like this is what I'm in for.
Yeah, I'm in.
Hi, hello. This was my first time watching this movie.
Yeah.
Hello. Welcome.
So,
thank you.
As like one of the dogs starts trying to escape, it like starts spraying this dog with this alien goo.
Yeah, I didn't know what to call it. I called it beige ooze.
Yeah.
Are we just
like,
gonna
it
keep bringing beige back into every other episode?
Beige ooze.
Oh, God.
It's the beige
yes,
ooze.
that's how I pronounce it now too. So thank you.
So like these tentacles start whipping out of the dog and sliding everywhere, and these spider legs start to come out of the dog. It is disgusting.
And it's like I feel like they sped up the scene because like the way it looks is like the tentacles are just going super fast.
It kind of looks like they use claymation for this almost.
Yeah. A lot of it, I think. 'Cause a lot of it's practical, right?
It's all practical effect. I don't think he
That's
used
so
any
cool.
CGI except the
No.
opening.
It's all practical effects, and then Rob Bottin, and then sometimes like a large production team is in the background just moving different parts of these creatures to make them look so lifelike.
And
That's
for me,
so cool.
I always preferred practical effects. It's like
Agreed.
been one of my biggest things on the podcast I've mentioned. Like it looks so real.
Oh,
It's so scary.
it's so grotesque.
It looks so real.
The only part
So-
that didn't look real to me is when it had those weird tentacle worms coming out of the fur, and I'm like, that doesn't look real.
Are you talking about the spider kraken dog?
Yeah.
Yes.
He just wanted to be friends
Yeah.
with the other dogs, and they just were not having it.
I was so sad when it started attacking the dogs. I was like, well, shit.
Yeah.
I'm
So-
sad.
So Clark hears this finally, and he goes back, and as soon as he opens the cage, two dogs just fucking leap
they're
out.
Doesn't he go in with the lights out?
He
The
does.
lights
Yeah.
are out.
The lights are-
the lights are out. He couldn't get them on, I think.
Yeah.
Okay.
He then, like, as soon as the dogs jump out, he sees this thing, and he has to fight these tentacles off to close this door.
Yes, it's bad.
And then, like, MacReady starts to hear this, and he instantly, like, full on, like, badass, I know something fucked up is going on, pulls the fire alarm to get everyone's attention right away.
Yeah,
Good.
and all of the crew, like they go over to where Clark is, and I think they're all weaponized, right? They have guns, prepared for the worst. Like the fire alarm is rang. It must be like some kind of like station code that the worst has happened.
Yes.
They tell a child to get the flamethrower, so he's going to get the flamethrower. Mac has a shotgun that he's just cocking, and he opens the door to the cage. They shine the light. He sees. This is going to be the fun part of this episode, describing the shit on screen that happens, because he sees like a bloody dog. It's missing limbs on the ground, but it's like, it looks unskinned and it's howling.
What I took it is that liquid it shot on it was starting to melt it down so it could assimilate into the dog.
Break it apart.
Yeah.
The beige ooze just deteriorated it.
The beige ooze.
And I think Gary's blasting too at this point. I think they're all
Well,
kind
they're
of
all
shitting.
blasting. And what's good about this scene is as soon as Mac shoots a real dog, Clark tries to stop him, which shows the connection between Clark and like these dogs, because he is the dog keeper. And Mac's like, stop, I need to take care of the situation.
And I wanted to bring this up because there's really no women. Like Tim mentioned, the one woman you could kind of describe as
The computer.
a computer. We do have a segment on here, Tim, called Shane Smith Relationship Guru. And I always ask him, like, can the relationship work out? So Shane, can the relationship work out between Clark and the mutated dog?
So hear me out. Yes. And here's why. Because if the thing assimilates the dogs and also assimilates Clark, they technically are the same thing and can then assimilate together in happy unison.
Wow.
So only
Ew.
if Clark gets mutated himself.
Correct.
Okay.
After like Clark stops Mac from shooting, Childs just runs in with the flamethrower, and the way I describe it is he just flamethrowers this monstrosity.
Oh, I was gonna say he unleashes the flamethrower. Not even, and I Snapchatted Brian about this last night. I was like, not even for a minute. He like 5 seconds flamethrow, and then the other guys run in
Yeah.
with fire extinguishers immediately. And I'm
They
like,
do, like,
you
the
couldn't
thin
have let it.
flambe.
Yeah.
Yeah, you couldn't have let it burned for like a solid minute.
I think they were worried, honestly, about burning the facility down because if they do that, they're kind of screwed.
Did they see how big that thing is though? Like, no, you can chill with it. You're running into a snowstorm. That flame is not going to last very long. Like, you'll be fine. You could have withstood
The only
to
thing
kill it for a minute.
But if you burn the building and they can't put the building out, they're in trouble.
Then they're just dead.
Yeah.
The only thing I can think of is, isn't there a lot of hay in there too? That shit
Yeah.
is nice.
Very flammable
It's a-
facility.
Yeah, that's why I think they had to, get rid of it as soon as possible.
well, you
question
know
for you
what?
guys.
Whose fault is that?
Whoever put the hay in there, yeah, I don't know.
Exactly.
Clark, let's blame Clark.
MacReady always does.
Yeah, it's true. I think there was one of the dogs, I think it was the Kraken dog, grew these ginormous hands and
Yeah.
like fucking Sam Fishered himself up on top of the ceiling to get out.
Yes, it
Right.
wasn't able to get out, but
Oh, he got incinerated?
I think
Okay.
they incinerated the whole thing. there.
Gotcha.
After this, we actually cut straight to the next day where Blair is now doing an autopsy on this. When he's carving this thing open, he sees the dog inside of it.
That was fucking something, dude. Like doing an autopsy, cutting it, and then seeing it inside of it.
And like Blair instantly says, this is an organism theft. This is an organism that copies other things. It absorbs them and copies them.
It imitates other life forms perfectly. So like exactly as they were.
So then Blair goes on. He says, Clark, you saw the dog. Did the dog do anything strange? And Clark says no. And then he questions how long he was alone with that dog. So this is what I like. So right away, the biologist, he knows like,
This is bad.
if this is copying things and Clark was the one with these dogs, what if Clark is not who he is anymore?
Because he asked him, like, how long were you with the dog? He's like, I don't know, an hour, hour and a half tops. Clark's getting pushy. He's like, why are you looking at me like that? He's giving him a strange look. He's like, it's probably nothing. But the gears are already kind of turning, like you mentioned.
But also Blair's kind of PO'd because he's like, why was the dog left out of the kennel? That was a comment he actually makes. He's like, why did you just have the dog? And I guess maybe they felt some sympathy for the dog getting like chased across like the Antarctic tundra by a bunch of angry Norwegians. might give an animal PTSD, and maybe you just want to get them acclimated to the facility before you just shove them in a cage with a bunch of other pups. But at the same time, he's like, dude, you didn't even follow protocol. So I automatically think you're super sus.
Yeah, no, 100%. The crew then starts to watch footage of the Norwegian team.
Yeah, I think this is cool. I love when movies like they like look for the mysteries beyond like from the footage that was done like so long ago. I think that's so cool.
So I don't remember who makes that comment because I obviously didn't bother to remember anyone in this film. Maybe Childs, but even half the time, okay, let's be real, 80% of the time, I have no idea who he is. I just know the name because it's the only one they say repeatedly. But someone makes the comment because they're all watching this footage. He's like, oh my God, how much more of there is this? And the doc is like, oh, 9 hours. And he's like, we know nothing from this. And I'm like, you've been watching what, 30 minutes like of a 9-hour footage and you think
Palmer,
there's nothing?
Right? I think it is Palmer who gets frustrated. And to some degree, I could totally understand. Like you're watching this found footage of just these Norwegians all just getting happy over random stuff. And you're like, I don't know what's going on.
They're in a storm. They have nothing else to do than get infected and watch 9 hours of footage to figure out what's going wrong. He can suck it up. It's like, oh, there's nothing to learn from this 9 hours of footage that I'm not going to pay any attention to. Like, yeah, no shit, you're not going to learn anything.
Palmer needs to go get high.
Exactly.
This is really cutting into his high time.
So they decide, even though the storm is coming, they need to go see this dig site. So Mac takes the copter. I believe he takes the copter with. There's someone who goes with him. Do you remember?
I think it's Norris.
It's Mac and Norris.
I think so.
So Mac and Norris take the helicopter to the Norwegian digging site. When they get to this digging site, they find what we know is a spaceship, and that, I'm assuming that's what they think it is as well.
Right.
And they find the giant hole in the ground where that ice block was carved from that the Norwegians have.
So you're almost looking at almost like an accident where like you've got the body separated from the vehicle.
Yes. No, 100%. That's what it is. Well, I think they even mention it. They're like, this thing crawled here, froze in the ice, and the Norwegians dug it out.
Right. Yeah. I think they mentioned like the ice that was buried in is like at least 10,000 years old.
Yeah.
Actually, I think it's 100,000 years old.
My zeros.
That's okay.
It's something ridiculous. It was like a really long time ago. That's all we care about.
So this is when it gets very interesting, because when they get back to the base, they tell them what they found. Obviously, some people don't believe them because it's aliens. But a very interesting thing here happens. Knowles comes in and says, someone left their dirty drawers in the kitchen. Who does that? We'll learn it's these underwear where their name tag has been ripped out, but the clothes are ripped. So this is now our first instance of someone is not who they seem to be.
Exactly.
Now, the dirty drawers, once again, are another, like, whose is it? Is it the guy the dog visit at the beginning? Which is what I always took it as. It's just the same guy going through the changes, and that's why he was just hiding his dirty drawers. Yeah. I don't know if anyone else thinks anything different, but if we're all on the same page there.
I mean, you never know, because that's the thing. This thing is very tactical. It's very calculated in that it's tearing off, like, identifying pieces of articles of clothing. So you just don't know.
Exactly. I love it. And now we cut to Blair. And he's looking through a microscope and he's watching the blue cells of a person or the dog. I don't think it clarifies which cells it are, be infected by the red cells of the thing. And now he sees there's a 75% chance that one of their group has already been infected. And he, keeps doing his analysis and he finds out it would take exactly 27,000 hours for the entire world to be infected if this got out of Antarctica.
I love this. This is like 1982 Siri, where he's just like questioning the computer and it's spitting out a projected response.
Yeah. I also love this scene because the PS2 video game's loading screens, the red assimilating itself into the blue.
That's amazing. You know, it's so funny. This to me is like, if I'm using it correctly, like the Deus Ex. This is the God in the machine. Like this is to me. Would I be allowed to cash in a please explain to me?
Yes.
Oh,
Yes.
100%.
Whenever you want.
I understand that these are biologists. I understand that this is their job. But like you said, this IBM supercomputer in the middle of Antarctica, I get it. They got federal funding. I don't want to go on a whole tangent, but I'm just like, did he code this himself? Like, how did you calculate this? And that's the thing. Actually, I'm not even going off on the main point. I've heard of people complaining that the calculation of how long it would take the thing to propagate isn't accurate, which is like, biologists go off, please.
Yes.
I can't do that math. Like you say, it's not 27,000 hours. It's actually more. But like, all right. The whole point of the scene is to convey to the viewer, this is bad.
Yes.
This is really, really bad.
That's what I took it as too. It's like, obviously you can't make a time frame of this. It's not real, but like, it's just being like, this shit is going to get fucked real soon if you don't take care of it.
Yeah. Also, like, they don't know how long the dog was infected. So I feel like the only way that they would be able to calculate that is if they had like one dog infected that they originally had to when like that dog morphed, because then they'd be able to tell. But they received that dog and it was already infected. So yeah, it's really just for the purpose of the movie.
I think what he's going off of is when he's just using the cells, how fast it perfectly assimilates onto those cells.
Yes.
So if
True.
if it's assimilating onto those cells in like 2 seconds, which it really does,
It's very
it's
quick.
like maybe it can assimilate in a matter of minutes, like a full assimilation.
And that scares me. And this is why I always say, too, this film in itself is the scariest concept to me. You know, zombie films, anything like this, to me, if you had a virus that could do that, like very, very bad. This is the one that freaks me out. But that's why I like it.
And what makes it even better is that they're in Antarctica. There's nowhere to go. It's just you and the thing.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, I think the closest thing to like something like this would be like a flesh-eating virus or something like
Right.
that. But you're right. Like anything like this, that's a good point. I was thinking about like what virus besides like a flesh-eating virus like deteriorates your body and like actually destroys your cellular makeup. And I couldn't
Flesh-eating
really think
worms.
of any. But obviously, I'm not like a renowned biologist, so I'm not going to be able to give you those answers. But I'm curious to like look, and if anybody knows, please comment on Instagram because we
Yeah.
would love to talk diseases.
Give me reasons.
What
to stay up
what
at
about-
night. Thank you.
What about flesh-eating worms, like the worms that like you find in aquatics that can go eat a fish from the inside out?
Oh, that's good. Now I get to think about that.
Yeah.
Thank
Or
you.
like those parasites that like
You're
infect
welcome.
like the frog eyes and they live in the frog's eye.
Yes. Ew.
But what about those? Did they ever do tests on those with like humans or anything like
I
that?
would really hope not.
No. I didn't.
Maybe in,
No, no,
maybe in
I'm just-
Antarctica. You know.
I'm just messing with you. Now we get to Fuchs, and he's telling Mac, we need to talk. And Mac's like, we can talk. He's like, no, we need to talk alone outside.
Get in my ski dozer 301, baby.
We cut to, I believe it's Windows and Bennings, and they're like cleaning up in the shop room.
And they have that cadaver in there.
Yes. And the thing is in there, and Windows says, we should like burn this thing.
Oh yeah.
And as Windows is saying that, you see the thing start to move underneath the sheet.
Yeah, they take one look away from it and that thing's just grooving, dude. Like it's at a 70s disco.
It's done well too, though, because Windows does walk out of the room when it starts moving, leaving just Bennings in there. Windows goes back into the room. Windows sees that Bennings is being taken by the thing. It's like strangling him. Bennings' shirt is off. And Windows just gets so freaked out. He runs outside to get Fuchs and Mac.
He's like, it's Bennings. So they go back into the room and they know that Bennings is gone. He's like, Mac, he was here. And then they notice the broken window and they see, I think, somebody running away in the snow. Obviously,
Yes.
It's Bennings. So they run outside and they see the person fall. They surround him, light up some flares, and Bennings looks up. And this is gross. His hands are like emaciated, bloody, like skeleton hands that are just full of blood. And they're like elongated too.
They're almost like tentacle hands.
Yeah.
So what I see here is that he flees out into the snow because this thing is trying to change itself quickly enough that, you know, nobody will notice.
Exactly.
But he failed because everybody caught him in the act and he's just sitting there with his hands just all distorted.
Yes.
But it knows that too, so it's intelligent enough to know that it shouldn't be caught.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's why I think it gives out that scream when then they see it. Yeah.
That is a haunting scream.
Oh, that scream is so weird.
Yeah, 'cause he opens his mouth and just lets out this howling scream, and that'll make your asshole pucker.
So everyone is out there now to see this. So I like that he did this in the movie because now everyone has to believe this because they're all watching this happen.
Mhm.
There can't be anyone who's like, I don't think like, yeah,
This is real.
You're dealing with this now. So Mac, he kind of kicks over the oil drum
yeah,
and he lights Bennings on fire.
He ignites immediately. Obviously, there's a lot of kerosene there. Back inside the complex, Mac tells Gary, any more time, it would have looked and acted and sounded just like Bennings.
Yes.
Like a perfect imitation.
So then they start to burn, I think, all of the remains at this point.
Yeah, they burn all of them.
And this is when they realize Blair isn't with them. Fuchs tells Mac, like, I still have it. I don't know like where Blair is.
Yeah, because they're like, Windows is in the radio room. Everybody else is in the rec room.
And they then see someone run. It's Fuchs, I believe. Mac sees someone running with an axe in the background.
Yes.
And that's when they go inside, and Mac just sees Blair absolutely destroying all of the computers. He is just breaking everything in the office, and Windows is like they're cowering in the corner.
I think he hears gunshots, right?
Yeah, he does.
Yeah.
Also,
Gunshots.
he destroyed the chopper. He goes to the chopper, and the wires are completely ripped out.
Yeah.
And he's like, okay, something's very wrong. Anyway.
The idea behind this is that Blair wants to prevent anyone from that base who could possibly be infected, even himself, from getting back into society.
Oh, his philosophy is we're burning together.
Yes.
We're all going down.
So let's throw this out. Blair's clearly a human at this point in time.
Yeah, he's going.
He is.
He's going down with the ship, but he's taking everybody with him.
Yes. And I respect that from his character, because his character is the one that has done all of these tests, and he knows this is almost an unsurvivable thing for them. Like, they're not going to make it out of here alive. So why even risk bringing it back to like landfall? Like,
Right.
Let's get rid of this now. And I think that's why without telling anyone, he's destroying the chopper. He destroys everything.
Well, because he doesn't want it by chances that someone else is already affected, which he knows someone is.
Exactly.
He doesn't want them to foil the plan. And he's like, I can't tell anyone what I'm doing until after I've already done it.
So the chopper is destroyed. They're inside. They learn that Blair's already killed the rest of the dogs with the axe,
Yeah, I think Childs is sent to go check on the tractor,
which
but
is also destroyed.
he comes back and that's also destroyed.
So they have no more dogs, no more like vehicles to escape.
To kind of subdue Blair right now, because he's like pretty unstable, because he's like you said, he destroyed all their equipment. They have Childs come around the other room. Blair shoots a couple of bullets. He's out of bullets, and then Mac just charges him with the table. And he puts the axe in the table, but it's not enough because they just push the table against the wall, and the whole team subdues him.
So from here, they then decide the safest course of action is to lock Blair in the tool shed. He tells Mac he doesn't know who to trust anymore. This is why he did this. He says, watch out for Clark. He was very close to those dogs. This is where I want to ask, Blair is still human. At what point is Blair no longer a human?
Yeah, I have no idea.
What I think is at some point when the group is like boarding things up, I think someone snuck outside to Blair. They don't show it or tell you.
They will cover when they go to the tool shed explaining the door.
Right.
Basically, like, the thing, because it has superhuman strength, just went in there and got him.
Exactly.
And then at some point went back to the rest of the crew. But at this point in time, he is human. He's just very much paranoid. I will have a question later on at which point I think he might have already turned.
Okay, so I look forward to that, because that's the one thing I'm not sure.
Me neither.
After Mac talks to Blair about all this, he goes back. They discuss, like, is there a way to see who is the thing? And the doc says, I think I can mix blood to see if someone's blood has been mutated, because everyone had their own blood bag already in the freezer. The doctor's thought is if they take fresh blood now, he could see if there's a difference between like the bloods. I'm assuming that's what he's going for. Like if the blood's been mutated.
Yeah, it might overtake it. I think if they do it on like on a cellular level, if the blood just mixes and nothing happens, then it's fine. But if it already tries to overtake it and replicate it, then you automatically know.
Yeah, exactly. So this is actually a great plan.
No, it is. Yeah, because like you mentioned, like on the cellular level, any contradiction is going to point out that the person obviously is not a human being.
The problem was literally the next scene, the doctor is in the room and all the blood has been drained onto the floor.
Yeah, it's literally everywhere.
Yeah, so the monster clearly heard it or was smart enough to think of that.
Exactly, which you don't know. I love this because now it's official, like everyone's against each other.
The level of sophistication that this like alien or monster already has is actually like insane, because they don't like ever talk to one or go super into depth about it. But if you pick up on like little hints throughout the movie, like such intelligent creatures.
So the way I took it with this monster is once it's assimilated into you, it assimilates into your thoughts and like your memories.
Exactly.
Which is why since it's a perfect copy, it just acts like you. Like,
it just knows.
And it knows what you know.
And that makes a lot of sense though. Like that's not like something that's like a curveball out of left field. That's totally in part with the replication that the virus is doing.
So are you
Yes.
technically not dead then?
Oh no, you're dead.
You're
at
dead.
This point. It's just that everything you knew and everything about your existence has now become that thing.
Yes.
You're
Okay.
gone. You're gone at this point.
It's a very brutal death too. The assimilation.
Mhm.
It
Doesn't look fun.
It looks miserable.
No.
This is when they all start like who had access to the keys. This is where we learn that Gary is the only one with the key. And he's like, well, maybe someone could have swiped it from me. Because obviously he doesn't want to be like, oh,
Hi,
like now
me.
they all think it's me.
He's just over here like, hi, this is the dart on my head. Please don't shoot it.
And then they're even saying to him, like, you know, you have your gun everywhere. How could someone just take this key? That key is attached to your hip. Like, you would never let someone swipe the key. And as they're having this argument, Windows just books for the guns. He's just had enough. He's scared and he just wants to get a gun and
He's
defend
ready.
himself. Yes.
I think he cracks the safe, right? It's a
Yeah.
gun case with a shotgun and ammo.
Yeah.
Gary catches up to him and he tells him, put it down or he's going to shoot him right in the head. And then Window asks the crew if they're going to listen to Gary. He could be one of those things himself. So now they're like you said, they're pointing fingers at each other. It's a lot of like, oh, what ifs? Like, what if he's one of them?
So they go outside after this. They burn the blood bags, which I think is a very smart thing because it could be contaminated with the thing. So just get rid of everything that you don't trust. They suspect Clark because of the dogs, suspect Gary because he had the key, and they suspect the doc because obviously it was his idea for the blood.
Well, also because they were like, oh, Doc, sometimes you borrow the key from Gary to go into the
Mhm.
blood bank.
Exactly.
And he's like, oh, but obviously I came up with the plant, but they put him there anyway.
Yeah.
They have to.
So they morphine the three of them, which Doc is like, let me stick the needle in. You don't know what you're doing. Which, to be fair, I think they have Palmer putting the needle in. So,
Funny.
Not the right guy. He's
yeah.
probably fucking stoned.
Yeah. Because Doc's even like, you're going to break the needle in me. And I'm like, you know what? He might be the thing, but he's kind of right.
This is going to fail miserably before we even start testing.
Exactly.
Dude, could you
Um,
imagine having a needle broke in you?
Oh,
No, I'm
no.
good. No, I'm good, fam.
That would be so uncomfortable. It's like
Yeah.
Saw.
I hate getting needles in general just for like a flu shot or something.
Yeah.
I can't imagine if the doctor accidentally broke it in me, I faint and probably never wake up because that's
You
traumatizing.
turn and look and it's Palmer with a joint in his mouth, and
Oh
you're
my-
like, oh my God, I need a new doctor.
I should have known. So after they morphine the three of them, we cut to Mac sitting by himself in a room, and that's when he's doing the recording. This is the recording we did the quote on, right?
Yeah, so he's recording and he's mentioning that the storm's been raging the past 2 days or 48 hours or whatever. They have nothing to go on, as I mentioned earlier. They found the dirty long johns. There's no name tag, could belong to anybody. And now there's a bunch of distrust between all of the crew members in the station. There's nothing that he can do. They can only wait. And then Fuchs tells Mac, if one particle of this thing could take over an entire organism, they should probably start preparing their own meals, eat out of their own cans of food.
Yeah, which is very smart. So once again, that's me thinking, okay, Fuchs is definitely one of the humans because the thing wouldn't suggest that.
He's also been thinking pretty rationally up
Yes.
to this point, but
But
I mean, still.
that's why I like Fuchs. Like, he's not the biggest character, but he's a very, very important character. He's the character that always kind of explains what's going on to Mac. He always keeps Mac in the loop.
Now, I do like Fuchs in that one scene where he speaks to Mac because, from what I understand, Mac kind of startles him, right? He comes in. Fuchs is working by himself.
In the lab.
In the lab. He actually has a thing of acid by his side that he's waiting to use because if the thing creeps up on him, he's just going to chuck it.
Yes.
He's ready. He knows. This guy's grounded.
Yeah, no, it's great. And after Mac leaves, the lights go out. And then Fuchs stands up, and he sees someone.
This scene actually scared me because
Yes.
the thing moves so quickly here. Just boom down the hall.
Is it a shadow?
It's a shadow.
Just someone just boom down the hall.
Once again, you can't tell who this is.
Yeah.
And this one I won't even guess because I literally have
couldn't
no
tell either.
idea.
No.
Yeah. So Fuchs goes outside, and this is where Fuchs finds a ripped MacReady shirt. Now, this is a common theory that some people have, that MacReady actually has been the thing the whole movie.
Really?
A lot of people
I've heard
think
that.
MacReady. No, it's a common theory that MacReady actually did turn into the thing. And despite him doing all these different tests, he's doing it as a way to always draw blame off of himself so he could be the one person to get away in the end.
I mean, it's truly, it is possible, I think, to some degree, because obviously he could just swap the blood when he does it in like the little sample case.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But I just don't know.
I mean, I'm not saying I buy into the theory.
I'm trying to think of when that would happen, because you're thinking it happens like right away, right in that one
Well,
scene.
no, not me. I don't think MacReady MacReady is the thing.
I don't
I'm just
think
saying it's a common theory that people have.
I'm just trying to find the thread. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Right, you're trying to find that one moment where he would have been alone, and the only reason I refute that theory is just because like they don't really go into MacReady's backstory, but it's kind of implied that he was like a Vietnam era chopper pilot. Like this guy is ready for anything.
Yeah.
And he's also like super paranoid.
Mhm.
I think he makes a comment later on the film. I don't want to go too far in, but like he says, like, I'm a light sleeper.
Yeah.
Yes.
He does it.
Yes. I love that. I love that.
He's so good. Me personally, I think it's the thing trying to throw off the scent.
That's
and
what I
put it
thought
towards
too.
MacReady.
It makes sense. You want to throw off. Obviously, everyone's onto you at this point. You need to like start playing the blame game here.
Right from this scene, though, we cut to Mac saying, "Hey, like no one's seen Fuchs. We need to find Fuchs. Like he's not in his lab. Where is he?"
Yeah, because a fuse went out in the lab last night, and obviously it could be anybody. He says, Nas and him will check outside. Palmer and Windows can check inside.
Yes. So they go outside and they go to Blair. And I fucking love this scene because they open just a little window in the shed and all you see is Blair sitting next to a noose.
Yeah, I noticed that too. There's literally a noose that's just like right in front of him.
So obviously Blair has been contemplating hanging himself. Now, my question is Blair still human?
This is where I say, I think this is where things went bad because he obviously had the thought in his mind, like, I need to take myself out before I get infected.
Yes.
But he's just sitting there. And if at some point he's also going to like really push to be like, hey guys, just let me back inside.
Which is this part.
Yes. He's like, please let me back in. I'm fine. I'm changed.
Yeah.
Which is like really.
That's a good point. I mean, yeah, that's a good point. He wants to go back inside. He pleads multiple times.
And the reason I think he is already changed as well in this scene is because Fuchs outside has been, we'll learn in literally 2 seconds, attacked already.
Yeah.
I think during that attack of Fuchs, whoever was out there during that is when they infected Blair.
Got it.
He
That makes a
said,
good point.
I won't hurt anyone. Nothing was wrong with me. And if there was, I'm all better now.
It's so bad.
Which is it's so opposite Blair just the other day.
Exactly. So like the contrast in like the way he conversates is kind of like a tipping point. So I would agree with that.
Yeah, same. I think he's infected at this point. Maybe he felt like he was being infected, so he put the noose up so he could kill himself before that point, but it just reached him. Like maybe he noticed that it was happening.
Like he just wasn't able to hang himself before it got to
Yeah.
him.
That was his plan. I think his plan was, like you guys said, go down with the ship, and he was going to take himself out.
It's a shame too, because Blair would have been a valuable asset, but they couldn't keep him with them with the way he was acting. But them exiling him to the shed is why they lost him
in the first place.
Yeah.
I mean, I think even Fuchs says that. I think he said it prior, right? That he's like, we need Blair. Like he is
absolutely
our number one, like he knows the most about it. But I think Mac says he's too far gone.
Yeah, it is Mac who says that. So after they have this conversation with Blair, and they clearly are not letting him outside because he just shuts the little window, they find the charred remains of Fuchs.
Yeah. They pick up his glasses and they know it's him right away.
Yes. And they come to the conclusion that it looks like he burned himself with the flare before the thing can get to him. Which, honestly, based off of how Fuchs has been with holding the acid by him in the lab, I can't see Fuchs taking himself out before the thing got to him.
Yeah, I wonder what the context for that was. I don't know if he just, like, if it was me, if I just saw one person from the base just charging at me, I'm like, all right, this has got to be it.
Yeah.
That's the only logic I have for why he didn't look like he was like experiencing like any type of like morphing or like he was just.
I think he instantly lit himself
He's
on
like,
fire.
nope.
Yeah.
Totally. This is actually my favorite scene of the movie. I always like pointing out my favorite scene when we do reviews. This is it right here because this is where he tells Windows to tell the others, we found Fuchs's body. And then he's talking to Knowles and he's like, Knowles and me are going to go back to my shack. And he's like, what for? He's like, because when I left it last, the light was off. And you see the camera pan and the light's on in the shack.
And this scene is what I think disproves that MacReady was ever infected. Because I think the light was left on because that's who went in and got his shirt and ripped it and put it in the snow. I'm going to say 45 minutes to an hour later, they aren't back yet. So the group is just boarding up the doors. They are like, Knowles and Mac are not coming back.
Fuck them.
Yeah.
You think Childs don't give a fuck?
Childs definitely doesn't give a fuck.
I love Childs in this movie because he's so level-headedly, I'm doing whatever it takes for me to survive.
But it's totally believable.
It is, and that's why I like it.
That's why I like his character too.
He's not like aggressive. He's just like, look, they're probably the thing. I don't care if they aren't the thing, but they're probably the thing. So we're locking these doors.
Yeah, Keith David definitely does an excellent job here. And as far as I understand, this actually was one of his first breakout roles.
Really?
This was like one of his first big roles. This was his big break. Yeah, so I think he does such a great job in this film.
You know, I'm so used to this. He's in so many things.
Yes.
You know that iconic face, and he's super like young.
Yeah.
And I'm like, dude, if I didn't know that was Keith David, it probably would have took me a little bit to realize it. But he still has that like deep voice.
That voice is
Yeah.
iconic.
So while they're boarding this up, Norris starts yelling, hey guys, come here, come here. And Knowles has actually finally made it back to the group. And they let Knowles in, and he has the ripped Mac shirt. So he says, I had to cut him loose. And like, he's like, I had to cut him loose. And now the group kind of does argue whether Knowles has killed Mac or if Mac actually, I feel like they kind of take sides. Like some people think just because Knowles is saying this doesn't mean Knowles is telling them the truth. What he could just be the thing lying.
And they're all arguing, and I think one of them mentions, you know, this is actually what it wants. It wants us to put everybody against each other.
Exactly. So as this is going on, though, you hear someone else trying to get in, and it's like the door's violently shaking, but they won't let it in. So then you hear glass break in the background. And I love this scene. This is just full on badass, like Kurt Russell. They get to like the storage room, and Mac is just holding a dynamite and a flare. He's like, you guys come near me. I blow us all up.
This is like one of those memorable scenes that you just take away from watching this movie because he's so fucking badass.
He looks so stressed out too. Like for some, I don't know what it is about the lighting in that scene where he's just in the shed with the dynamite. Like he just looks like I'm done.
Well, especially with the snow in his beard.
Yes, incredible.
I was just gonna say that, Jen. Like they do such a good job of showing that he's been outside for like an hour or two and just freezing, and like it's not even snow, it's ice.
Just forming on it.
Anybody messes with me, the whole camp goes.
Which they should have just done in the first place. They should have just blown themselves up in the first place.
That was the Blair plan.
That was the Blair plan.
Yeah.
I agree. I think that they should have high key blown themselves up and just like, all right, we're all going down with the ship. Anyone who rejects is the beast.
So like in a more general sense, that's interesting that you say that because this is definitely devolves into like human nature.
Well, that's the thing. It's human nature to survive.
That's why this movie's so cool. It's because like you have like a guy like Blair who, even though you view him as like almost like a villain because he's like trying to kill everybody, but the idea is he doesn't want this to evolve to everybody else. But you have guys like MacReady and Childs who are trying to be almost selfish. They want to stay alive.
Yes.
They have a more survivalist perspective.
It's what's more important to you, your own survival or the survival of literally everyone.
Yeah, myself.
That's true.
The MacReady approach.
They do try to like grab MacReady, but they didn't realize he's Kurt Russell, so he literally just he throws
Their first and last mistake.
he throws both of them off of him and just instantly goes back to holding the flare
Oh,
with the
so
dynamite. But Norris goes down, can't breathe, like he's dying. Shit's about to get crazy, and like there's gonna be things coming out of bodies you never knew possible.
I didn't need to know it, but
Too late.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So they bring Norris into just, I think it's the rec room almost. Like, is it the doctor's room? It looks like the rec room almost.
It does, yeah. I think it's the doctor's room, just because there's a lot of like office chairs in there and stuff.
They throw him onto the table. Dr. Copper starts defibbing him. Once you get to that third defib, I've seen this movie when I was younger. Just nightmare fuel. Like right here. Norris's stomach opens up into this toothy stomach monster and bites off both of Dr. Copper's hands.
Yeah.
oh yeah, that was disgusting.
The gore, the blood is just everywhere right now. This guy's just missing his whole entire arms.
And it looks so real. It's so unsettling.
Yeah, for sure.
And as they're like panicking and like trying to grab the flamethrower, and Norris's head is making this unearthly noise. They do it so well because his head is now starting to rip off. His neck is pulling up. There is literally blue tendrils and like yellow pus shooting out. But what's cool is as the throat is going off and you hear him yelling, you actually hear like the vocal cords tearing almost as it's like
so grotesque.
Yeah,
the sound is
it's terrifying.
I think, is this the part where Mac just like brings out and just starts torching shit?
Yes.
So he has to. I mean, he's bringing out the flamethrower. He's bringing out the big guns. Norris's head is on the ground. His long tongue creates a rope that's used to pull himself under the table. And while the crew is putting out the fire with the extinguishers, the head grows spider legs.
Yes. And this is my favorite line of the movie because now they're looking at this burning mess on the table. This head with spider legs and actually 2 eyes that pop out through the top.
It grows those eyes.
So it moves the eyes around to look, is kind of going out of the room. Palmer just turns around and says, "You've got to be fucking kidding me." And Mac, without hesitation, lights this thing on fire. And the noise the head makes.
Fucking screeching noise. And it's like crawling around like really quick in the inferno that they made. Just like super quick.
Like a spider would if you lit a spider on fire.
Yeah.
At this point, Mac only trusts Windows. Like for some reason, I guess Windows maybe has been the one he's seen the most, which is why he trusts him.
He tells Windows and Palmer to tie everybody down. Those are the 2 guys he actually tells to tie down, believe it or not. Gary proposes, like, let's just rush MacReady. He can't blow us all up. But then Clark's like, they should actually do what he says. He killed Norris pretty quick.
Yes, because Child says, "You can't tie me up." So that's when Mac points the gun at him.
Yes.
And like you said, Clark is like, "Yeah, let's listen to Mac. Let's, you know." But as he's saying that, he's got a switchblade.
He's ready for a mutiny.
Mm-hmm. And as he's doing that, Clark lunges, and Kurt Russell. Like, it's not even
the
MacReady.
reflexes.
Yeah, it's Kurt Russell, just perfect pinpoint headshot on Clark.
This is like some fucking Bone Tomahawk, Tombstone, Wild West shit right here.
Yes. So Windows, now it's just Mac and Windows. They tie everyone up, even Palmer.
Yes, correct.
So Mac's like, and this is how like Kurt Russell's just such a good actor. He's like, I got a little test, because he's like saying it now, like anxious, and like he's gonna basically draw blood from every single person. And then he's going to light a copper wire. He's going to heat it up with the flamethrower, and then he's going to touch their blood. His theory is that since the head was still moving separate from the body, each cell is its own entity.
Yes.
So if the blood is still away from the body, the blood will still try to defend itself, even though it's not part of the body, which is a fucking ingenious plan.
It is.
100%.
His logic is good. You know, when a man bleeds, it's just tissue. The blood from one of you things won't obey when it's attacked. It'll naturally try to survive. So the camera's in a pan, and Windows tied up the other crew members to their chairs, their arms, and their legs, so they really can't move. Windows cuts Knowles to get his blood. He's the first one. And they put it in that little sample dish. Fine, now it's Windows' turn. So he cuts himself pretty deep. He's pretty gross. He presses his finger, like squeezes the blood out on there. And he heats up the copper wire, puts it in the tray. He's clean. Mac does the same with his own blood. But he even like cockily says, he's like, even though we already know I'm clean, he's like, he does it, and he's good.
The shots of them cutting their thumbs in this is so ugh to me. And I'm not usually freaked out by blood, but I will say I did cut my thumb once making fancy grilled cheese. Don't ask. But my thumb definitely did not coagulate blood properly. And they are just cutting their thumbs and just being like, whatever, and just slap a Band-Aid
was that
on it.
word?
I think they show it too well with Windows, because they actually press his thumb and the blood
Goes
just
into
pours.
Yeah, I think they're cutting with like a really fine like
Scalpel,
blade.
yeah.
It's like really precise. So it's like going deeper, probably stitches. Like those are deep cuts.
Those are definitely stitches. And I'm
Yeah.
just sitting there like, wow, okay, I guess I'm not as manly as these guys are.
Oh, definitely not. That thing would have had me the second it showed up. I would have been petting the dog.
Oh, hi, doggy.
Oh, I would have just killed myself.
You would have been
Pull
like
the
the one
Blair.
Norwegian guy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just grenade the chopper. You're fine.
Yeah, exactly. I always tell my friends this in a zombie apocalypse. They're like, Jen, we'll help you survive. And I'm like, no, you don't get it. I will just off myself.
Sometimes it's the route you have to take, especially in a zombie apocalypse.
It's a lot of effort to try and survive at that point, and I'm just like, I think I'm good. That sounds stressful.
Going back, like Brian said, they cut Knowles' finger, Windows' finger, all their fingers. They have everyone's blood set up. The first people he tests the doc. Nothing happens to his blood. He then tests Clark. Nothing happens to his blood. So Child says, so you're a murderer.
Yeah.
Which, I mean,
You can argue self-defense, especially because of the
Yeah.
the high-toned situation. He came at him, and it was like a reflex.
Mhm.
And to be honest with you, there's no law in Antarctica right now.
There
It's like,
really isn't.
no one's judging you about what you're doing.
yes.
Yeah, for real.
So far, Windows, Mac, the doc, and Clark have all been tested, and nothing has happened to the blood. Gary also says this is pure nonsense. Mac then begins to test Palmer.
I like it because
Yeah.
he's like having a conversation, and he just kind of like dips it in, and then you just see the fucking blood just like fucking, and the thing just like fucking.
He starts spazzing out.
Well, yeah. In that conversation, I'm going to point this out. because as Gary is saying, this is pure nonsense. And as Mac's about to test it, he says, I thought you say that, Gary. You're the only one who did have access to those keys. That's why I'll test you last.
Yeah.
And as soon as he touches Palmer's blood, the blood shoots out and the ground just starts vibrating, and you just see Palmer. He's not moving. He's just vibrating. His face starts to melt like Indiana Jones and the Raiders of the Lost Ark.
You know, I didn't really know how to describe this. It's like his face was melting, but at the same time coming out.
Yes.
Like his real self was coming out of the body he was hosting.
Yes,
basically.
yes.
Like, I think his face was vomiting out of his skin.
It was so
honest-
gross.
I mean, it's gross.
We've
but
all been
accurate.
there.
Yeah.
You know, it happens to the best of us.
He then, like, these tendrils, once again, start to come out of his limbs. Obviously, he's tied to a bench with the other guys, and the other guys are just, like, screaming
This was
and
so
panicking.
dumb. This was so
Yes,
stupid.
they're like, why are we in this situation? And the thing then breaks out of its being tied up, claws onto the ceiling, falls down, and then Windows is just terrified, staring into this thing, and Mac is yelling, Windows, blast it! But the thing's head splits open with these teeth and grabs Windows' head and just starts... I feel
it's
so bad.
insane.
Yeah.
It's absolutely insane. Also, this nightmare seesaw that they decided to tie them up on. Why did they think, like, just put them in corners of the room?
Yeah,
Right?
You're 100% right, Tim, because, like, clearly if one of them was the thing, something like this was going to happen.
Yeah, so his head is getting crunched by this split-headed teeth monster now.
Yeah.
And he's getting put in the air, and he's just getting flung around by this thing.
Like, he's breaking ceiling lights, everything.
Yeah, he's just mangled. And I think he does eventually toss Windows across the room.
Yes.
Mhm.
And his face is just looks like
God.
it is fucking destroyed. Yeah. Like a shrunken voodoo doll head, blood beyond comprehension.
Like, on screen, that had to be the most painful death we watched.
probably. I mean, there's been some rough ones, but
Like,
probably.
that one's bad. Thing to mention is Mac is trying to blast it with the flamethrower the whole time, but since he has had the flamethrower running to do these tests, it won't ignite.
It's
Like,
like, yeah, it's like, is it overheated?
it's
That's
overheated
was
is what I
assuming.
took it as.
He's overused it.
He eventually does light this thing on fire after it has thrown Windows across the room, and this thing just runs outside through the wall, face plants, and Mac blows it up with dynamite. He is not fucking around anymore.
Yo, he's just got like one of those like Bayou boy, like fucking great aim with the dynamite, just chucks it perfectly and it just blows up.
We got one Kool-Aid man scene in the movie, and it was immediately ruined by explosives.
Yeah. So Mac goes in and he sees Windows is like already making like gurgling noises that he's like,
Changing.
yes. Sadly, Mac now lights Windows on fire. Now, Mac, the first person he tests is Knowles. Knowles is good, and Mac ain't fucking around. Cuts him off, gives him the flamethrower. He's like, you're with me.
I love this part,
Yeah.
how he just keeps adding people.
the new squad.
Yes. So he tests Childs next. He's good. And he's like, I'm good. Cut me loose.
Yeah.
In that Keith David voice. And then last but not least, he tests Gary. Gary is also good. So we have 4 characters left, not including Blair. And the 4 of them all know they are safe because now they know this test is accurate.
Yeah.
I will say, Gary does have one of my favorite lines in the
Yeah.
movie. It's something along the lines of like, can you please just untie me from this goddamn shit?
Yeah.
I don't want to be here all fucking winter.
Yeah. Dude, that's what I'm saying. Like, all these characters, minor, big, they all are so believable and have such good dialogue.
Yes.
Like,
I love the quick cuts because you, like you said, you mentioned you have him and Knowles just like pointing, and then just Gary's left, and you add Childs to the mix, and they're all pointing the flamethrowers at him.
so now that we know all these remaining survivors are clean out, Mac tells Childs they're going to give Blair the test. Gary, Knowles, and Mac are going together. They're leaving Childs to man the fort because he says if Blair comes back without us, kill him, which is smart because they know going in Blair easily could kill them if he's the thing at this point in time.
Yeah, so they do notice the doors open to where Blair was previously. Then Knowles asks, how did we leave the door? It was bolted from the outside. And then he notices that, the floorboards are weak. So they remove the floorboards and then they head down.
Yes, and underneath in this underground tunnel, they find that Blair has been building a spacecraft the entire time.
A large room, a large spacecraft. Looks like he's been taking parts from the helicopter. Looking outside, Knowles tells Gary and Mac he thought he spotted Childs running outside the camp. like just running.
I don't want to talk about this yet because I think this is a good thing to talk about at the very end of the movie.
Yeah.
So we'll hold off because that's going to be a decent discussion.
We're almost there anyway. There's not too much left.
So they realize the thing is like trying to freeze itself because the generator goes out. It's trying to freeze itself to wait for someone else to come.
It's got no way out of here. It just wants to go to sleep till the rescue team finds it. That's what they say.
They know they're goners now. They've officially all turned into Blair and they just blow everything up.
Yeah.
They go room by room, just throwing dynamite and blowing up everything.
And this is funny because it's like this is literally what happened to the Norwegian team.
Exactly.
They just went through the same scenario.
Yes.
They didn't get it before, and now they do.
Remember the ruins from the beginning. They fucking torched the place, dude.
They blow up the spaceship in the shed as well.
They ran a bulldozer through the building.
Mm-hmm.
They started lighting, like Billy said, buildings on fire, several of the workstation buildings.
Then when they go downstairs, they realize the generator isn't just off. It's gone.
It's missing.
gone.
Yeah. And then Mac's like, we need to burn this place to the ground. And he's like, we need to bring it into the ice, like bring it down.
So that's when they start planting all the dynamite in this like basement area.
Yeah.
They do split up here.
I hate this.
They split
this
up.
gets me so upset. I listen, I'm not like an old timey prospector. I don't know how long it takes to lay dynamite.
Yeah.
But like, come on, guys. Like hold hands while crossing the street. Here.
I'm with you. I think at this point they're just like, let's just get this done and kill ourselves as soon as possible.
Let's hurry up and die.
yeah, pretty much. But Gary is the first one that he thinks he hears a noise, and Blair shows up. And Brian, did you describe this one?
Oh boy.
I hate this so much.
Well,
This
I think
scene
like,
reminded me of Society for some reason.
Yes.
Because it is.
Yes.
He's like trying to set his explosives, right? His headlamp starts to flicker. He's actually scared the shit out of me.
Yeah.
He takes it off. He's like trying to fix it. Blair just fucking like slides in, like fucking cha-cha slides his way into the scene. And he takes him by the face. He presses him to the wall. And then he gets handsy. He puts his fingers into his face, like digs it into his skin and just straight up just stretches his freaking skin out. And it is so like, ooh.
Especially because like
It's
when you
brutal.
see Blair walk away, his hands are just pulling the face skin up.
He's dragging him.
Dragging him. This is society shit because, like you said, it's like he's dragging him by that, and it just looks like a one whole skin flap.
Yeah.
No squelching though.
No, thank God. I could do without squelching. Then we cut to Knowles. I actually love this scene. Knowles hears a noise and he starts to walk towards it away from Mac. And then we never see Knowles again.
Yeah,
You don't even
That's
see him
it.
die.
Yeah.
He's just gone.
And Mac looks up and he sees Knowles is gone. He calls for Knowles.
no response.
And Mac automatically knows it's like,
Fuck.
it's me. It's just me.
I like that though.
Me too.
I like that approach. It leaves you with enough to know that he's dead, and it doesn't overkill it by him going there and seeing him dead.
And that's the thing, because it'd be redundant. You just saw Gary. This happened to Gary. You don't need to see it next scene happen to Knowles.
Like this is the
'Cause you-
tone of the movie.
Yeah.
You know what happened. And we've always talked about this with previous movies.
Yeah.
We don't like to be like super educated on what happens. Like we can deduct.
I just saw Gary's face turn into a glove. I don't need to see that happen to Knowles now in the next scene. I could put 1 and 2 together.
Get your Gary gloves for Christmas, kids.
Nice.
They put a whole new definition to the word fingered.
Oh.
Facts.
Oh, TikTok.
Mac then lights dynamite, and it looks like he's about to do the final explosion. But then the thing burst out from under the ground. First, actually, it grabs the detonator.
Oh, it just swallows the detonator. It just knows.
Yeah, it's fucking crazy, dude.
We said this thing is smart. Like it
Yeah.
knows their plan.
Well, so this is my thing. This thing, after it grabs the detonator, it clearly comes out of the ground, and it's a giant beast. My question is it the dogs, Blair, Gary, and Knowles all into this one super thing?
It has to be.
And that's why it knows the plan.
I think so. Because
Yeah.
you see multiple faces. I
Mhm.
think I've seen a dog. I've seen some people. I don't know. What do you think, Tim?
I think this whole creature is very much a hive mind, right?
Yeah.
So it can work independently, but at the same time, all of the thoughts and feelings that all of the creatures it's exposed to and replicates, it's sharing amongst each other. So at this point, it really could just be one massive thing, or it could be just a part of the thing that's still running around and just doing what you said. So
Yeah. So this is the big showdown. And by big showdown, I mean Mac blows it up with dynamite.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love the simplicity of
Yeah.
it.
Like he just tosses the dynamite and it blows up with the detonator, blowing up the entire base.
And that line is incredible too.
What does he say exactly?
Yeah, fuck you too.
Yeah.
Also there, like just a simple line. Like you don't need to go too deep into a monologue, just one little thing.
He does like graceful tumble salt too.
Oh,
Yeah,
it's so
was
beautiful.
So the technique is marvelous.
Give it a 10.
For sure. After the base is blown up, Mac is still alive and he's sitting next to a burning drum barrel. And this is the scene we were alluding to. Childs comes back. Childs asks if he killed it, but Mac doesn't answer. He just says, "Where were you?" Childs says he thought he saw Blair, but when he went out to find him, he got lost in the snow. And now this is my big question. Is Childs the thing?
So
I was going to ask you that too, because basically the movie ends right here.
now, as far as I understand it, at this point in time, Mac has converted all of the alcohol into Molotov cocktails, right?
Yes.
So this is the thing that everybody really gets into about this scene is Child sits down and, you know, they're like, we're just going to just see what happens, I guess.
I love that is because they don't know. Like, if Childs is human, he doesn't know that Mac is not the thing. And Mac clearly doesn't know that Childs isn't the thing.
Yeah.
And they're just both so done. They're just like you said, they say, let's just see what happens.
So you don't see Mac drink from it, but he gives Childs the bottle and Childs immediately drinks it and Mac laughs, which is why people believe that Childs was the thing, because at this point in time, Mac has converted all of the booze into Molotov cocktails, given it to Childs, and Childs, thinking he's a human, drinks it. Normally, if I were to drink, I'd be like, whoa, bro, this is kerosene. What the fuck? But he just drinks it. And that's why I think Childs is the thing, because Mac's like, fuck. Because he's just sitting there like...
That actually is a great
That is.
explanation.
That's a
very
great
clever.
point. I didn't catch that what he gave him was essentially poison.
Yeah, and you're sitting there like, I'm fried at this point. I don't think he has the flamethrower anymore. He used up all the dynamite.
Yeah.
He can't, he's done.
At this point, he can't even defend. Like, he knows, like, if Childs is the thing, there's nothing he can do anyway to fight it.
Right.
So it is what it is.
Yep.
And like Jen said, the movie just ends with them laughing in front of this burning drum.
See,
Just-
if I knew that what he gave him was poison, maybe I would have caught on to that more, and it would have made more sense. But upon watching the end of this movie, I was just like, and that's it. Like, I was so confused why it ended right there. But that makes a lot more sense now.
I mean, there's different possibilities.
Oh,
Yeah.
100%.
I mean, there's also that theory that
Mac is actually
Mac
the
was the-
thing, and
right.
that he's infecting Childs at the end with that.
also that, yeah.
I think that leaving that up to interpretation obviously is the goal here. But I think just like throwing around all these theories, I think it just makes it a little bit even more special, because obviously everyone has going to have like a different take on it. But I mean, you can see like the way it's set up to how certain things can play out. And I think it's super creative. And John Carpenter always does such a fucking great job with that kind of stuff.
John Carpenter is one of my favorite directors, like ever, minus some of his later stuff. But
Yeah, I mean,
for the most part, he was always
we're
good.
talking like Ghost of Mars.
That's a guilty pleasure movie, but it's not. It's terrible. Or even like Village of the Damned wasn't that good.
I did not like it.
Yeah.
No.
Well, Carpenter's also kind of left this whole scene in ambiguity, because as far as I understood, you had mentioned the Thing video game was supposed to be canon. And as far as I remember it, Mac and Childs are both in it. But he later tweeted like a couple years after the game came out, he goes, yeah, one of them was the Thing. He just tweets that out. Just puts it out into the universe.
Of course
Yeah,
he
one of
does.
them was the Thing. And then never says anything about it ever
I
again.
love it. Make people stew in it even more.
Super cryptic. Wow. That's awesome.
And that is our review of The Thing. I fucking love this movie.
Yeah, I mean,
Yes.
I think we're gonna have like kind of like a universal opinion of this movie. I mean, we're giving this a rating at 1 to 10. 1 being actually probably, I would say like 1's like, I don't know, a Sabaro's pizza. 5 is like a Chicago slice. 10 being, you know, maybe New Haven, Connecticut, best pizza in the country.
Wow.
Apparently,
All right.
believe it or not, that's what they say. I
Really?
give her that. Apparently, you think New York? They say apparently New Haven, Connecticut is the best pizza in the country. So they say.
Never been there, so I'm not going to say
Road
it is
trip?
because I don't
Road
know.
trip.
For research.
One day we will road trip for research.
I don't know.
Um,
Connecticut's not on our state advisory, is it?
It's not, believe it or not.
It's
one of the
not?
very few. Connecticut
prob-
and New York are not.
And Pennsylvania, they're not.
I don't know.
Pennsylvania.
It changes so much.
Vermont
Anywhere
is
in-
track. Yeah, Vermont
If
is up on
if
there.
you can commute there for work from New Jersey, it's not on our state advisory.
Okay.
Gotcha. So reviews.
I'll start us off as always, or
Yeah, I mean, but just make sure you stay true to the pizza scale.
You may not.
regardless, this movie's a 10 out of 10 for me. It is my second 10 out of 10 on the podcast now.
Damn. Low standards.
Uh,
Nice, Jen.
so yeah, Midsummer was my first 10. The Thing is now my second 10. There's nothing I don't like about this movie. Like, I love the characters. I love the practical effects. I love the music, despite, I think, Tim telling me that the music got a Razzie.
Yeah, Enrico Morricone got a Razzie apparently for worst soundtrack ever, which is so unfair because I think the tone of the movie, the low boom boom bass, just really sets in the mood. And I don't think you always need I don't need John Williams and like the Philharmonic Orchestra to get me freaked out about this. Okay.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. That, like, John Carpenter gets his one music beat. We've
That's
seen
it.
Halloween and keeps it throughout, and it never loses its luster.
Yeah.
I'm gonna be honest. I actually thought the score was great. Like,
Me too.
Yeah,
That's what
I
I'm
think
saying.
it's a great score too. Yeah.
No, I'm with you. So, like,
That wasn't notable to me.
It's so eerie and scary, and like atmosphere is so tense because, like I said, it's based in Antarctica. There's nowhere to go. You can't escape. There's nowhere to get out. Like, it's perfect. The creature is terrifying. It's gross. You got Kurt Russell. What more can you
Beautiful
say
dude,
there?
man.
Yeah. He goes in full Kurt Russell mode in so many scenes. Shooting Clark in the head without blinking. I love the mystery aspect. I love trying to piece together who becomes the Thing at what point. When did Palmer get infected? When did Norris get infected? Was Norris actually the guy in the room with the dog? Was it Palmer? Have they been the Thing this whole time? Like, from almost the beginning? Like I said, I assume basically everyone's going to say the same things I am saying now, so I don't want to keep getting repetitive. So 10 out of 10, I'll take it over to Brian.
yeah, like I said, I hate touching on, and you do the same thing. We don't like touching on the same stuff, so I'm gonna try to take a different angle. I'm gonna give this the New Haven, Connecticut 10 out of 10 on the pizza slice.
Wow, you guys got low standards today.
Yeah, well, I'll be honest, and I know Shane knows this. This is my third favorite horror movie ever made.
No, not to cut you off. This is also just almost a top 10 favorite movie of all time for me.
For sure. It's in the IMDb top 250 at like 136 or something like that. It's obviously it's a favorite of a lot of different people, and for various reasons. I caught onto it late. I wish I watched this as a kid. I would have been freaked out, but I would have loved it. It's a pinnacle body horror movie. I mean, like, I'm trying to think of some of the greats, like The Fly. Slither is a good modern one. I think you said The Stuff is a classic.
Yes.
But this is my favorite, one of my favorite horror movies. This is obviously my favorite body horror movie. I think they go over the top. The fact that you can't even explain what you're seeing is awesome. What it does to each person is just so cool, and the way they die is so clever. The characters are all really good. And the fact that you don't know too much about them prior makes it even better. So you're trying to like piece together like who MacReady is, what his background is, like why is he so gifted at what he does. And same thing with like a Childs, because Childs comes like kind of like even later into the film. You only know about him as the guy that brings over the flamethrower. And then the atmosphere, and this is why I think the music works, because it has this tone of, like Shane mentioned, you're isolated, you're alone. The only thing you have near you is a Norwegian camp a mile away, and that's Ash at this point. There's nothing around them. Windows can't even get a radio connection. So that like low tempoed beat really sets the scene of just like they're isolated and they're dealing with something they do not know how to battle with. This is a 10 out of 10 for sure. One of my all-time favorites. And I don't think there's much to complain about. I can't think of one thing. I think this is as good as it gets, almost a perfect film, to be honest.
Okay, so that brings us to me. I am not a super huge fan of body horror. It's rare that I like a movie with body horror in it. For that, I will give it an 8. I enjoyed the concept and the mystery behind this, but yeah, my review is like pretty plain and simple. I enjoyed the movie. I'll give it an 8. Body horror, I knocked 2 points because we've talked about this before. I hate most body horror things. I don't like anything attaching itself, going into, or breaking out of the body that should not be there. So, yeah, very against all 3. So yeah, this is an 8 in my book, which for me, for this type of movie, I say is pretty high.
Yeah, I would say so too.
Yeah. It's funny just because Jen hates body horror, and like David Cronenberg is one of my favorite directors of all time, and every movie of his is body horror.
Yep.
And I love all of his work. So it's the one thing we're definitely always going to differ on there.
Well, I think even without Jen's rating is so high, because I know you're basing it off like the mystery aspect, because the mystery aspect is so effing good.
Yeah, if it was just body horror, I wouldn't be enjoying this as much.
Yeah, because the mystery is so strong that you add the horror element, which is the body horror to it. And that's where the horror fans go crazy. But even if you're not a horror fan, you're like, this is gross, but the mystery is captivating. Characters pit each other against each other.
Yeah.
Who becomes a thing at what point.
The writers did an excellent job. I very much enjoyed that.
So if I were to ask what a 9 would be, would that be like a piping hot New York slice or
That's a piping hot New York slice for sure.
Okay, so the reason I give it a 9 is just simply on the fact that I think everything you guys have touched on is like 100% like on point. I love the mystery aspect. I love the practical effects and the body horror. I love that you're just constantly kept guessing. And really the whole, like I said, the whole concept of it does actually terrify me. And I think even though it's supposed to be like this UFO extraterrestrial experience, there's some grounding in that. You know what I mean? Like you feel like this could be something that actually could happen. I would say, I guess the only thing that is missing for me is, now I'm over the IBM supercomputer thing. It is not, the 1 point off is not because of the computer thing. I want to make that completely clear. I was heartbroken when the chess master died. But I guess what I'm going off to piggyback off that is, I wish they had more time to really go into the characters' backstories a little bit, because, you know, even going on in the beginning, like we were kind of like piecing together, like, what do these guys do? What is their motivations? And I know that from my understanding, they did want to have that in the film originally, but that would have probably easily pushed the film to over 2 hours, 2.5 hours.
That's
which
true.
is like, that setup alone would have taken away from like how quickly everything goes from bad to worse like that. But in the end, again, this is one of my favorite horror films. I absolutely love it. I think everyone is electric. Everyone does such a good job in their roles, and each of them have their own special lines. You know, Keith David's great. Kurt Russell's amazing. Wilford Brimley.
Yeah.
It's really hard not to make diabetes jokes the entire movie, by the way. Like when like you get Gary, it's like he gave him the diabetes. Like that's what happened.
Yep.
But yeah, so no, that it's a 9 for me. But again, it's not because of the chess master dying. Put that on record. Just other than that.
All right. Very well said.
Awesome. This was such a fun review. This was such a great movie. John Carpenter stuff is fucking incredible. I know you mentioned They Live. We should definitely do that movie in the future. That'd be an awesome one to do.
Another one with Keith David, which is incredible.
I would also love to do In the Mouth of Madness.
That's another good one. I mean, dude, you can run down the list of John, and he doesn't only strictly do horror, obviously. Escape from LA. I mean, like, he also did Assault on Precinct 13. Like, this guy's expanded, but his thing is horror, obviously.
Without a doubt.
But it's like different kinds of horror, because he does slasher. He does like body horror stuff.
He's versatile.
He really is. He's a great freaking director, man. He's so talented.
He also did The Fog, which was pretty good.
Yeah, that's right.
I forgot about that one. Well, I believe we've come to this point in the podcast. So this is a segment where we choose the most notable death, the death that we thought contributed the most to the movie, the coolest death, the funniest death. It's really anything you want, anything that tickles your fancy. And we will add someone to our Necronomicon, our Book of the Dead. Feel free to do an honorable mention, but it has to be a person. In this case, it could probably be a dog, but
I know what you like now. I know what you're gonna go for.
That's actually not who I'm gonna put in, but like for instance, because like I remember during our Wicker Man episode, Brian wanted to put in the radio from the helicopter, but we agreed that it has to be a living thing.
I actually put that as an honorable mention, Jeff.
We did decide to do that.
Should I take that out?
R.I.P. radio.
No, we can leave it as an like non-existing things can be honorable mentions, but they cannot be the thing that we somewhat slightly definitely don't promise to reanimate.
Yeah. And I think one of the core rules we did when we created this is the character has to be 100% confirmed dead.
Yes. Yeah, because in Society we had that discussion where we didn't know if
Ted,
because
your hot
mentioned that
boy
his
Ted
body-
was dead.
Yeah, he's hot. They mentioned he can congeal. You're right.
Yes.
Totally.
So I will start us off. My pick for Necronomicon is Norris. I just think his death scene is the most iconic death scene, like in the movie, with his head turning into a spider.
Oh, that one's Norris. Okay, thank you for clarifying. I was going to say, you're going to have to clarify who's
All
who, because
good,
I
all
don't know
good.
who anybody is. That's why I let you guys do most of the talking, because I was like, I don't know who any of these people are, so I'm going to let you tell everybody.
So it's all good. It's normally my role to forget, so.
I wish you seen the death scene of the first one they do the autopsy on with the double face.
Well, when we get to the prequel, we could do that one.
Mm-hmm.
Because the face is creepy. I mean, you see, it's like half of a face, and then the other half is just extended, like fucking super in the opposite direction. For me, favorite death, there's a lot, man. There's a lot of good ones. I'm not gonna go for the dogs. I'm gonna go for a human. It's hard for me. I gotta go for Skin Face. I gotta go.
Gary?
Yeah, he's got to be dead, right? I mean, he's getting dragged.
Well, yeah, no, he's dead. He's
by the
definitely
face.
dead.
So
he's done.
I'm gonna go Gary. His character is also kind of a dick, so I don't know.
Who's the doctor that they isolate?
Blair.
I was going to say Blair because I feel like he contributed the most to our story.
That's fair. There's a lot of good ones. We haven't talked about the freaking dude that got chomped by the teeth face.
And like
Windows?
90% of the people in this movie are dead. So
You technically see everyone. Oh no, well, because Knowles dies off screen,
yes.
and
So does
Blair, you
Blair,
technically never
technically.
do see die.
But we can assume that he's
You
part
can't
of the
assume.
he's part of the large entity that attacks.
Yes. So then it just comes down to Childs and Mac
Yeah.
being alive. So Tim, let's see. What is your suggestion?
I was torn just thinking about it, but after really going over it, I want to say Clark, because as far as I can tell, Clark was the only one who actually got murdered by another human.
That's a good point.
That is a very good point. So I'm gonna make a rule if you guys are in favor. If
Who's Clark?
Clark was the guy that
The dog guy.
He was like the kennel guy, and he just attacked
Mac.
and Mac just shot him in the head.
Okay, sure.
Clark got shafted
He
pretty
did.
hard. Pretty damn hard.
Because he was never the thing. He was a human.
Yeah, and he felt so bad watching the dogs get killed like multiple times.
Child's throwing shade at Mac. He's like,
Okay,
you're
so what's your rule?
This is my rule. I think
Okay.
that if we're all tied like this, because we normally, if it's like a split, we flip the Necronomicon. I think we let Tim's go. We'll
Go with the guest.
go with the
Oh,
guest.
thank
like
you.
that.
Thank you.
I'm into that.
Yeah.
Unless
And
it's
Tim-
an
and Tim
object.
brought us the greatest merch the world has ever seen.
This is incredible.
I might have rigged the committee today, but that's okay.
Put
It's
that
politics.
get that right up to the camera.
Yes, I think I had it on there.
Yay!
Yay.
Is awesome. All right, bro. Write that name in there.
What was the name?
Clark.
And what was the year for this movie?
1982.
82, baby.
9 years later, we were all born.
And Shane, have you prepared a eulogy for Clark?
Yes, I have. Clark, you were a great kennel master. You were so kind and caring to the dogs in your kennel. You even put a dog that was a stray in there to try to care for it and nurture it into a great sled dog. Too bad little did you know that dog was the thing, and then everyone would suspect you to be the thing for the rest of the movie, leading to you ultimately getting shot in the head without ever actually being the thing. And that kind of sucks. So for that, we're putting you in our Necronomicon.
Clarky boy, get it.
So, Tim, thank you very much
Thank
for
you
being
guys.
on.
Seriously.
Thank
Thank all of
you.
you. Really.
You were a great guest. I'm glad you came in cosplay looking like Kurt Russell for us.
And back to the basement I will go.
Appreciate it.
Ginger ale and scraps for this guy.
Yeah,
Mostly-
at least him and the raccoons are making some good shirts.
Mostly just came up for snacks.
Yeah, I ran out of seltzer.
If there's one thing we can offer you, it's seltzer.
Oh, thank goodness.
Yeah, we got a lot of it in the fridge.
Oh, man. We will definitely have you back on.
Yes, please.
We'll more than likely make it for They Live.
They Live, and I know we mentioned some other movies, probably some Nicolas Cage stuff we'd like to do
Yes.
as well.
Oh, boy.
So we got some ideas for you, Tim.
I'm excited.
So thank you everyone for listening. We are the final podcast signing off, and we will see you next week in a movie Macaulay Culkin is in. So if you haven't already, please follow us on Facebook and Twitter at The Final Pod Ever. Follow us on Instagram at The Final Podcast. And if you haven't, please give us a 5-star rating on Apple. It really, really helps Apple, push out our content and recommend us to other people to listen to.